This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, I'm still here and I'm still alive, and the COVID didn't take me down. In fact, my nose is a little bit drippy, but everything else is fine. I think I passed the worst part of it. How long did it take you to get over COVID, Taylor?
Oh, let's see. Like the first 3 or 4 days was like the high fever, and then it just kind
Yeah.
of went down from there.
Well,
And
I
then
didn't
the
have.
next, so
Yeah, that wasn't my
I
problem.
had fever for
Yeah.
like a couple days pretty bad, and then from there on, it was just like getting my energy back.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm trying to get my wind back a little bit and all that. But technology is a wonderful thing. I was able to do my DBU class on Collaborate and Blackboard, which is a wonderful thing. But it really does help to have technology here. And the studio setup you gave me really comes across well on Collaborate.
Oh
The
yeah,
the students think I'm some sort of wizard, whatever, because I'm not.
you are
Well, yeah, right.
with a
But I'm not
podcast.
looking in the camera on the computer or the mic computer, and they're sounding like they're being broadcast from some dungeon or something like that. They like, wow, that's so professional. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's what I get with Local Legend Studio. Anyway,
Yes, sir.
yes. How is that working out, by the way? Is it
It's
is
going well. We got like 2 or 3 shows that are in the process of getting other materials together to start
really going to do
streaming.
some couple more podcasts? So I'm going to
Yes,
have some
sir.
company. Do
Oh,
I know these
yes.
people?
You
I
might know
know.
some of them, yes.
Okay, well, let's see about getting them on the show. Do a little cross
Yeah.
collaboration.
Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah, one fast enough. Okay. Anyway, today we're going to talk about Joe Biden or Donald Trump. How can you tell? Basically, it's just what my gist of my show's going to be is that Joe Biden ran on these various issues and various things, yet um, we I can't tell the difference. Can you? I mean, the way he's conducting himself, the way that he deals with the press, the way that he backtracks and claims he never said this when the evidence is quite clear that he did. It reminds me of Donald Trump, and also the fact that both CNN, surprisingly enough, and Washington Post have caught him numerous times in error, in mistaken conversations or mistaken quotes. I wouldn't call them lies, but mostly it's just falsehoods is the way they put it. And so, he's earned 4 Pinocchios, for example, which is the scale that Washington Post does for misstatements. He's earned Pinocchios several times. And I guess my overall point with this is that I'm not here to defend Donald Trump. I think I made my point very clear about my problems with Mr. Trump and the way he conducted himself. And some of his policies I like, some of them I didn't like, but I never did like the way he conducted himself. I never did like the name calling and the Twitter and the accusations and the whatever else. But I'm not, except for the Twitter, I'm getting the same thing from Joe Biden. And my point I hope I make with my vast listening audience is that the better than Trump statement, that, "Oh, well, at least he's better than Trump," doesn't apply. It's that is not a basis for governing, is that he's better than Trump. If you think, "Well, at least he's not Trump," what's the difference? We're getting Trump just in a different form. Joe Biden has conducted himself in many ways just like Donald Trump has, and in certain policies as well, and my point today is gonna be his treatment in the media, which I'm no fan of. I'm certainly no fan of the media, so I don't feel sorry for him, but the way he treats the media, the way he refers to Americans who don't agree with him, the way that he's dealing with the immigration system, the way he's dealing with the energy situation, the way he disparages our elections, that's a big one. We're going to talk about all those things, and I'm going to have video clips that show what I'm talking about, plus articles from right now. I have 2 from the New York Times, 1 from CNN, and I could have gotten them from several sources, but I always like to use articles from sources that can't be dismissed as conservative propaganda, let's say. I don't like using sources that people will say, "Well, that's, Fox or whatever else." And so I use sources for those that are in the middle of our conversation politically. which is probably the majority of you, it hopefully has a more objective thing shine to it. Well, anyway, before we jump into that though, let's talk about our sponsors because they make all this possible. And I can't do without them. Thank you, Daniel, CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Check out the website on CrossFitBurleson.com. Check out the protocols and the memberships and whatnot, and the times of operation, things of that nature. So thank you, Daniel, for your sponsorship. One of the original sponsors, as is Shandy Stogsdill. Shandy Stogsdill at the Stogsdill Realty Group. Check out our 817 Life page if you want to see what's going on around this area, but also the real estate. She is the person to talk to. She's closing a couple of houses this week and next, and she's the person to talk to if you want to move in or around the Burleson area because she has the information that you need. Plus, she can help you with the interest rates through her husband, Ronald. Also, thank you to Rex Russell, the Russell Wealth Group, myfinancialbox.com. Hit the link. He has an introductory video. You could get to know him, have a little coffee with him, talk about your 401ks or your retirement plans or vacation plans, whatever you want to talk about. He's there for you. Good man, Rex Russell, very trustworthy and solid advice. myfinancialbox.com. Thank you also to Kimmy Etheridge over at Optavia. I was looking on Facebook, just scanning through it, and one of my former students, I don't know if she wants me to use her name, but one of my former students was on there giving Optavia a lot of shout out about how well she's doing on this plan. So it's 817-789-1622. Call Kimmy, talk to Kimmy, very sweet woman. We cut to know her through networking group, and she'll set you up with a lifestyle and health plan. Another friend from my BNI group, Gayla Moores, over at Southern Gym on the top floor of the Windmiller building. She could do it all for you. You know, Valentine's is coming up in about 2.5 weeks. And so if you're looking for something for your sweetie pie, or if you want to get something repaired, something cleaned, something designed, she could do all those things. And she's doing very well. And Gayla is just a wonderful young woman. And she could take care of all what you need in terms of jewelry. All right. Let's start from the beginning, shall we? A couple things that I've talked about before. One of them is about the paying of illegal immigrants for family separation. I believe it did this in a podcast called Crime Does Pay. It's either that one or Crime Does Pay part 2. It's one of them is about this issue. The other one's about street crime. Both are great listening, by the way. Would you agree, Taylor? Yeah, anyway.
Always. All of your
yeah.
podcasts are the best to
When
listen to.
when I asked for you, like, oh yeah, great, you bet, boss. I could have said just.
Well, I
about
have
anything right there.
my mouse is ready to cue your first video, so I had to find the unmute button first. I'm prepared, man. Come on.
All right, get off.
Come on, man. Come on.
All right, anyway. So anyway, we're talking about the fact that when it came to the immigrant issue, the Biden administration, unbeknownst to Joe Biden, was going to be paying. It was reported in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, mostly the Wall Street Journal, going to be paying these families up to $450,000 apiece. And this is what he said in response to that. So, if you would, the first one, please.
The White House today trying to, shall we say, clarify a comment President Biden made yesterday. The president had been asked about a Wall Street Journal report that the Biden administration was considering payments to the tune of $450,000 for families separated at the border under the Trump administration's so-called zero tolerance policy. Here's the exchange.
Do you think that might incentivize more people to come over illegally?
If you guys keep sending that garbage out, yeah, but it's not true.
So this is a garbage report?
Yeah.
Okay. So
$450,000 per person. Is that what you're saying?
that was separated from a family member at the border under the last administration?
That's not going to happen.
One
Okay,
important thing we
we're
want to know,
good.
the group Physicians for Human Rights has
Well, that's good. It goes on. Jake Tapper goes on and explains it. Anyway, well, next day, Mr. Biden, his press secretaries, and this time as an assistant secretary, do what they do best, which is clean up on aisle 4. They basically said he's not opposed to it and all this other business. He's not opposed to it. And all this, and so people are like, wait a minute. Yesterday he said it was garbage. Today you're telling us that he's not opposed to it. Okay. Run the second clip. This is his response to it.
Where do you stand? You said last week that this report about migrant families at the border getting payments was garbage.
No, I didn't say that. Let's
said
get it straight. You
the
said everybody coming across the border gets $450,000.
The number was what you had a
The
problem
number
with.
I was referring to.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing.
Sure.
If in fact, because of the outrageous behavior of the last administration, you coming across the border, whether it was legal or illegal, and you lost your child, it's gone. You deserve some kind of compensation, no matter what the circumstance. What that will be, I have no idea. Yes.
Okay, no doubt that's true. He has no idea. But he does what he does best, and that is harass the questioner. Okay, this is what Trump did as well. Trump didn't like the question, he would harass you about it. Now, people say, well, Peter Doocy's annoying, and Peter Doocy is from Fox, and Peter Doocy's just trying to troll the president. He ain't a patch on Jim Acosta of CNN's sleeve. Jim Acosta is the most egregious reporter I've ever seen in the White House setting. So the idea that Peter Doocy is more of a pest than Jim Acosta was to Trump that's just not true. Peter Doocy may be a fox trying to ask questions that he doesn't want to answer. And so what he does is he turns it back around on the question. He does this all the time. That's just exactly what Trump did. And Trump would call the media a public enemy. Well, Biden hasn't gone that far yet, but he treats reporters as hostile when they ask questions he doesn't want to answer. It isn't just that he doesn't have the facts, which he doesn't. It's obvious in that last exchange he had no idea. He says, "I have no idea how much it's going to be." He is the president. He should have an idea. He's not there negotiating these settlements, but he should know. Now, on that note, New York Times article. This article came out on December 16th. The Justice Department halts settlement talks with migrant families. And so after all of that, they pulled the plug on this whole process. And rather than paying out whatever money that they're going to pay out, 450,000 or not, that's off the table now. And these migrant families are going to have to go family by family to get this done. Now, let me be very clear. I was quite clear. I am opposed to the payment of this money. That's not my point. I'm not here saying, I've changed my mind. I haven't. But my point is that Biden administration basically pulled the rug out from under these people after claiming if you lost your child, you deserve some compensation. So now what's going to happen is it's going to go individually by family through the courts with the appeals process, which will take years. And so basically he's kicked this can to the next term or administration, whichever happens, whether he's reelected or not. And I'm not unsympathetic to these migrant families. I'm really not. I just don't know if we owe them money for them coming into our country illegally, and now we're going to be paying them substantial tax-free money. I'm not in favor of that at all. And then, but my original point is that when you say one thing and then do another, and then under the table do it yet another thing, this is a Trump-like maneuver. So he castigates a reporter for his supposed hard-heartedness, and then he does exactly that. He pulls out the rug from this whole process. So you have that to deal with. Now, sorry, it's still got a little bit of side effect. Let's talk about something else, all right? Let's talk about oil and gas leases. Okay. Biden's green credentials, shall we say, have always been suspect. They've always been suspect. He just got the green religion when it got him votes in 2020. He's almost always, through his course as a senator, been a pro-fossil fuels senator. That's why the environmental groups had such a hard time endorsing him in 2020. But they did, with the expectation that he would fulfill his promises. And here is an article. I saw this yesterday. This is from January 27th, New York Times. Headline reads, Biden outpaces Trump in issuing drilling permits on public lands. For the first year of his administration, Biden has outpaced Donald Trump in terms of selling public land leases for oil and gas drilling. On the books today is 200,000 acres off the coast of Alaska. Alaska is seen by the green movement as almost like Eden. All right. It's an untouched place, an untouchable place. and now he's going to sell 200,000 acres. And plus, there's another prospect of some of the oil and gas leases in Alaska being up for sale as well. Now, the Arctic Reserve, it's almost like this holy ground to the Greens. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something else. So basically, he says, "Well, I'm keeping this safe, but these others are up for grabs." He also has put up for sale 80 million 80 million acres in the Gulf of Mexico to be sold for oil and gas. So far, 1.7 million have been purchased for $192 million profit for the government. So they have sold what? I don't know what the math is, 3 or 4%. They've sold about 3% of the proposed 80 million acres that are available for sale. Now, these oil and gas leases are up for auctions and things like that. So, and it's not like, you know, Exxon or whatever can just go and buy a piece or whatever else. There is an auction process. So we're getting the highest bidder. But basically, the article says this: the administration's actions reveal an uncomfortable truth. Although Biden supports a shift to cleaner sources of energy, he has failed to curb fossil fuel development in the United States. And so he also are talking about a major push in Wyoming for the coal-rich Powder River Basin, as it's called, as it's referred to in the article. I'll finish the quote to be fair. His push to suspend federal oil and gas auctions has run headlong into political and legal challenges, and his administration has offered no plan to address the climate impact of mining in Wyoming's coal-rich Powder River Basin. And so the point is that he sold more leases than Donald Trump did. But the environmental groups will go, well, that's sure unfortunate. We don't like it. We hope he'll do better. Rather than taking to the streets and pulling out their hair in outrage and ripping their sackcloth and dumping ashes on their head, the green movement is just doing what a lot of these liberal movements are doing, and is biting their tongue and saying, well, he's better than Trump. Is he? I mean, he's selling more oil and gas leases. Right now, he's begging OPEC to produce more. He's opened up the strategic oil preserve, and which hasn't done a dang thing to oil prices in this country. Gas is up to $3 here, and it's much more elsewhere else in a lot of other parts of the country. So the whole environmental thing is not working. Excuse me. And so the whole environmental thing is not working for him. You know, he has gone to the oil producers, American oil producers, and say, you need to produce more. And they're looking at him like, are you joking with us? You cast us as villains to the human planet, and you want us to produce more oil now because of gas prices are too high? They at the same time he's gone to these oil producers and say, we want you to produce more oil. The Democrats in Congress are trying to pass what they call a windfall profits tax, which means any extra money they would have made by the artificial raising of the price as they see it will be taxed at a higher rate, and on and on and on. And so these oil executives are thinking, I don't know how to take you, Mr. President, because you tell us on one hand we're the destroyers of the planet, and now you come back and say, well, just destroy it a little quicker because my administration needs it. And that's where, I guess when I get to these kind of things, I want these green groups not to, step on their tongue and say, well, it's better than Trump. I want to see the same kind of vigor that they went after Trump. I want to see them do it after Mr. Biden. I want to see them put that policy or that philosophy, that principle at the front of what they're doing, not because of who's in the White House, but because it's what they do. And right now, the environmental groups have been very, very quiet about all of this, and it's very bothersome, to say the least. Also, let's go. I want to shift gears on you, Taylor. Can you hang in there with that?
Yes.
All right, let's go to the one. It's the fourth and fifth one. The fourth
right.
one. Let's go. No, I'm sorry. I don't want to mess you up anymore. I got this thing working pretty good. So I don't want to mess with that. Let's go to.
We can play whichever you want. Just let me know.
Well, I know, but I got my order. Let's go to number 3. We're going to talk about the speech, the speech that he gave in Georgia about 10 days ago. In this speech, he was supporting the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the other voting rights acts, and he basically was railing against the filibuster being upheld or about to be upheld. It hadn't happened quite yet by Manchin and Sinema. He was also talking about those who oppose this bill and how um, if you are opposed this bill, that you're a racist, you're a segregationist, that you want to turn the clock back to Jim Crow. There's no way to parse that in his speech. It was a 28-minute speech, and he was very clear that you're either on the side of Satan or the side of God, and the only way to be on the side of God is to support his legislation, and that the only people that would be opposed to his legislation are Klansmen and bigots. Okay, run that clip, please.
The question is, where will the institution of the United States Senate stand? Every senator, Democrat, Republican, and Independent, will have to declare where they stand, not just for the moment, but for the ages. Will you stand against voter suppression? Yes or no? That's the question they'll answer. Will you stand against election subversion? Yes or no? Will you stand for democracy? Yes or no? There's one thing every senator, every American should remember. History has never been kind to those who've sided with voter suppression over voters' rights. And it'll even be less kind for those who side with election subversion. So I ask every elected official in America, how do you want to be remembered? At consequential moments in history, they present a choice. Do you want to be on the side of Dr. King or George Wallace? Do you want to be on the side of John Lewis or Bull Connor? Do you want to be on the side of Abraham Lincoln or Jefferson Davis? This is the moment to decide, to defend our elections, to defend our democracy.
Okay, it's good. All right. So I think he's fairly clear. You have a choice here. You could either stand on one side or the other. Okay, it's quite clear to me that if I voted one way, I'll be on the side of Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King. If I voted the other way, I'm on the side of Bill Connor and Jefferson Davis. On a side note on this is exactly what Mr. Trump did: is divide the country between good and evil, dark and light, black and white, whatever you want to phrase it. And Mr. Biden's doing the same thing. He is not worried about the 49.99% that may oppose him or voted on a different way. He's only worried about a certain part of his own coalition. And he's willing to basically cast that other half into outer darkness because they don't agree with him on these policies. Now, I think he was pretty clear who he was dividing line was, that it was either Bull Connor or Jefferson Davis or one side and Lincoln and Martin Luther King on the other. By the way, the interesting thing about it is mentioning George Wallace back in the 70s when Mr. Wallace was governor of Alabama and thought of as a possible Democrat candidate for office. He was quite chummy with Mr. Biden. Mr. Biden had a very close relationship with many of those Southern politicians like George Wallace, like James Easterbrook, like Thaddeus Bilbo, which these are names I'm sorry, I'm being very obscure, but these are senators and governors from the South that were very segregationist. He was quite friendly with them, and he was like complimentary of them. He was very good friends with, close friends with Robert Byrd of West Virginia, who at one point was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. And so for him to be using George Wallace as a negative example is quite ironic, I think. But anyway, of course, when he was asked about his caricatures of people who did not support the bill, this is how he responded.
One more, sir. You campaigned and you ran on a return to civility, and I know that you dispute the characterization that you called folks who would oppose those voting bills as being Bull Connor or George Wallace, but you said that they would be sort of in the same camp.
No, I didn't say that. Look what I said. Go back and read what I said and tell me if you think I called anyone who voted on the side of the position taken by Bull Connor that they were Bull Connor.
And
that is an interesting reading of English. I assume you got into journalism because you like to write.
so did you expect that would work with Senators Manchin or Sinema?
No, here's the thing. There's certain things that are so consequential. You have to speak from your heart as well as your head. I was speaking out forcefully on what I think to be at stake. That's what it is. And by the way, no one forgets who was on the side of King or Bull Connor. No one does not. The history books will note it. And when I was making the case, don't think this is a freebie. You don't get to vote this way and then somehow it goes away. This will stick with you the rest of your career and long after you're gone.
And Mr. President,
folks.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
That's enough. All right. That was an ad for Sean Hannity. Sorry, guys. It was on YouTube. I didn't. But anyway, I think you hear from yourself what exactly he had to say. I don't have to really explain it. You heard what he said. And you also saw the hostility towards this reporter. Now, for those who are listening and not watching, the reporter looks like he could barely, shave. I mean, he was so young. I'd be surprised if he could legally buy alcohol. And because he was a young-looking kid. And so what does the president of the United States do? He basically abuses this poor guy. And then he gets all hostile and tense. And that's exactly what happens with Mr. Trump. Biden ran on a policy of being civil and cordial and all this other business. We're going to reach across the other side and unite and all this. And that hasn't happened at all. All right. Many of my Democrat friends felt in the 4 years of Donald Trump that Donald Trump regarded them as enemies. And I couldn't argue against that because the way Trump behaved, in public, what he said about people, what he said about individuals, what he said about people who thought differently than him. And so I couldn't make the argument that it was all rhetoric. But many of my Democrat friends, I think rightfully so, felt like Donald Trump could not care about their concerns one iota. Joe Biden ran against that in 2020, yet he's exhibiting the same exact behavior. You're either with me or you're not. You're either against me or for me. There is no gray area. You're either good or you're evil. And I represent good. You represent evil. And one last thing before we go to the commercial. Let's check out what he called Peter Doocy a couple of days ago.
The only reason I don't like doing this is you never report on why I've called a meeting. And this is really important. I had a very, very, very good meeting, total unanimity with all the European leaders. We'll talk about it later. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
Well, I guess it says it all for civility, doesn't it? Now, again, people say, well, it is Peter Doocy. Well, when Trump was cussing out Jim Acosta and Peter Alexander of NBC News or Jonathan Karl of ABC News, that was unpresidential behavior. So, before we go into the second segment, let's go ahead and talk about our other sponsors here because it's more pleasant. Thank you, Otto at our place. I mentioned yesterday that he brought me some recovery material, recovery items, soup, other things, 10-cup whiskey to help me get through this COVID thing. It's very kind of Otto. You're really are a generous person. You're what they call a mensch. That's a good thing, by the way, for those who don't know what I'm talking about. It's not a bad word I just used. It's a Yiddish word for swell guy. But thank you, Otto, for everything you do. I'll see you next week. I know there's going to be a couple of times I'll be bringing in people, and I think my Sunday school class men's fellowship are going to be held there every other week. It's COVID interrupted, but there you are. But thank you to our place. Thank you to Chris Notaboom at Wild Cigar. I'm going to do that right. Chris Notaboom at Wild Cigar and Culture. They got some things going on this weekend. They got the ball games on. The championship games on Sunday. Have some special cigars on sale. They have a couple of drink specials that you might want to check out. So you can go there, have a decent smoke, a decent drink, decent company, decent conversation with good music in the background so you can hear yourself think. To me, at my advanced age, I like to have an opportunity to visit, not be blasted out like, some disco bar. Disco. That aged me, didn't it? Okay, but thank you, Chris, for all you do. Thank you to Antonio Bassano at Proactive Payment Solutions, at proactivepaymentsolution.com. Check out the website. They help you with your point of sales operations. Help you with getting a system of getting paid and doing payments at a more cheaper rate than what you're doing now, with less cost per transaction. If you don't have such a system, he can set you up with that. So call my friend Antonio, a good guy, former student, good man. So proactivepaymentsolution.com, another good man, Payne Beagles of Beagles Tech. At Beagles Technology Solutions, he'll help you with your smart home situation. I'll read his ad that he wrote for me for the first couple of rounds that he's on. But basically, you could be turning your house into a smart home or transforming the technology in your business, or he'll help you migrate your data or set up a video doorbell. He can provide seamless integrated technology solutions to help you meet your goals through on-site and remote support. So it's a one-stop shop for consultation, purchasing, installation, configuration, and support. So check out beaglestech.com or 817-944-3572. That's 817-944-3572. And the good thing about it is if you're looking to, set up a smart home, he's definitely the gentleman to do it. Very bright young man, and I've known him for a long time. So a high character young man. So you'll be glad you dealt with him. Also, another person you'll be glad to deal with is Tiffany Griffin. LocalLifeTX.com is the latest issue. The newest one will be out next week. I believe it's a Valentine's related issue. So if you're not advertising with her, you're missing out, because she has 30,000 subscribers and 110,000 people see that publication plus the website. It's where a lot of the people, a lot of your neighbors, a lot of your friends, a lot of your coworkers, whatever, they all shop and or have businesses there. So it's a good place for you to do some looking to help support the local community. So thank you, Tiffany. And lastly, Live 365, Burleson Radio, playing your hits right now. Your voice, your station. I don't know what they're playing at the moment because I'm busy with y'all, but still, it's going to be playing good music. I know because I put it there. Okay, let's talk about this last thing. This one bothered me. Well, it's two of them, actually. One's about Ukraine, one's about voting. Let's talk about the first one here. In the press conference, which was, by the way, the first real press conference Joseph Biden has had in a year. He's been president of the United States for a year, and this is the first open press conference like that he's had since his inauguration, which is fewer than Obama, fewer than Trump. Everybody seemed to think he didn't do press conferences. He did a bunch until they got out of hand. But this is the first one in a year. And in this, he caused a great deal of confusion about the Ukraine situation. So if you would, run the tape, please.
Russia will be held accountable if it invades. And it depends on what it does. It's one thing if it's a minor incursion and then we end up having a fight about what to do and not do, et cetera. But if they actually do what they're capable of doing with the force amassed on the border, it is going to be a disaster for Russia. My guess is he will move in. He has to do something.
Ukrainian officials
There you go.
with shock.
Okay. It's a long clip, so I don't want to get into all that. But what was that all about? Did he actually say to the Ukraine that we're going to basically allow a slight incursion into your territory if it's not of a certain size, so we're not going to respond to it? And then he basically calls out Putin and says, you will have to do something. And that's true. All this is true in terms of, will Putin have to do something? I talked about this a little bit yesterday, just kind of skimming through it. Yeah, Vladimir Putin's going to have to invade. Why? Because if he does anything other than that, then he's going to look really bad in front of his home country. He's going to look weakened. He's going to look not the invincible autocrat that propaganda and his administration have put him out to be for the last 2 decades. And they talk about a diplomatic solution. The only diplomatic solutions that are going to satisfy Russia are going to destroy NATO. destroy those smaller countries. Because what he's demanding is basically we retract our agreements with many of our NATO allies and that we pull back our troops to a level acceptable to him, at a distance acceptable to him. Anything else in that is non-negotiable. And so he's going to have to invade. Now, I'm reading today that the Chinese are asking him to wait till after the Olympics because they start next week, and they don't want to fight with all this, and that's fine, great, wonderful. But okay, we have one here, says Trump's a traitor and a con man. President Biden's just a typical politician. Mr. Engel, I believe it is. I disagree that Biden is just a typical politician. As far as a traitor and a con man, I think he's a con man. As far as a traitor, I've made my points very clear about January 6th and how that is. There is no acceptable answer for Trump or his supporters about that activity, nor his continual dispersion or of character on elections, which is where I'm heading to in the next. Biden's not a typical politician. He's a traitor. I don't call him a traitor. I'm not going to get that into the name calling. I'm sorry. Biden's not a traitor, but he is a con man. He conned all of us into thinking that was going to be different. I'm not going to call Biden a traitor. I want to make sure I got that out there, but I'm going to call him not just a typical politician. I think Joe Biden has misled the American people. Okay. Anyway, on to what I was talking about. As far as what he said about the Ukraine, destabilized for a while the whole situation. Of course, then here comes Jen Psaki, and here comes the Department of Defense and the Department of State saying, "Oh, no, he's on board with full support of the full support of the Ukraine." And I will say, in the last week or so, Biden has had to stiffen up his resolve about what constitutes an invasion. Now, they keep talking about a diplomatic solution. Yesterday, Russia responded to our response to his demands, to Putin's demands, and he said that it's very concerning and very grave and unacceptable and all this other business. So we're still heading towards, I'm sure, conflict. As far as what we can do about it, economically, there are some things we could do about it if we are willing to pay a price. Economic sanctions aren't a one-way street. And when we sanction a country heavily, if they're of any equal size at all, it's going to constitute some problems. Now, the Russian economy is pitiful. It's pitiful. Every Baltic state has a per capita GDP that's twice of Russia's. Russia has a GDP per capita less than Mexico. All right, and just doing my claims, per capita GDP divided by the population. And so, so the sanctions, though, we do have energy concerns, and we also have European concerns. Most of the Europeans are on board, except for Germany. And well, I'm not going to get confused in that. My point is that Joe Biden he didn't just misspeak. That's really what he thinks. See, Joe Biden, for what he can say about him, is not really good at hiding his thoughts. And so when he said what he said, that's what he meant. Just like when he was talking about back in the speech in Georgia, I'm going to refer back to that. Now we're talking about elections. The President of the United States did something that in every way is reprehensible as what they claim Trump did. And I believe Trump did it too. So don't get me in. I'm not into saying which is worse, because Trump, one of the worst things Trump did was delegitimize our elections. Well, the Democrats are just as guilty of that. In 2016, they tried to delegitimize it. And in 2020, they said it was rock solid. And now they are saying it's going to be illegitimate again because they didn't get the bills passed. The President of the United States, in that speech in Georgia, said that it would be hard to find that you're on one side or the other, and there's the legitimacy elections are at stake. Later in a press conference, he said, "I don't see how." I'm paraphrasing very closely in the New York Times Post. You can look it up yourself. "I don't see how these elections are going to be legitimate without these voting bills." So basically, said these bills would have made them legitimate. Now that they're not going to be passed, these elections are going to be suspect in their legitimacy. The President of the United States has preemptively said preemptively said that the coming November elections are not going to be legitimate, is that's exactly what Donald Trump did and has been doing about Georgia or Arizona or Wisconsin or about the entire thing, the big lie, in other words. Joe Biden just did exactly that. And so what's going to happen if and when the Republicans take over the House, which I think is a pretty sure thing, if they take over the Senate, which I would say is about 60-40 in favor of, they've already built in their excuse. Well, it's because of voter suppression. It's because the voters weren't allowed to vote, which is a total canard. Okay, it's a total lie. Georgia and Texas and Florida have more liberal voting laws than Joe Biden's home state of Delaware or Chuck Schumer's state of New York, and by a bunch. New York has some of the most cumbersome, restrictive rules of the 50 states with no early elections, no early election days. Georgia and Texas and Florida, the three main culprits in the national media, are more liberal than Joe Biden's home state. Yet Georgia, Texas, and Florida are getting all the attention. Now, this clip is a little bit more lengthy. This is Savannah Guthrie taking on with Miss Harris, Vice President Harris, Kamala Harris, about what is being said. And they talk quite a bit. And now I kind of shortened it some. The first half of the conversation was about those misstatements on the Ukraine. And of course, Vice President Harris said, no. He's clear as crystal. It's, just going to be harsh sanctions and there's not going to be any toleration of anything at all. Fine, great. Then she asks about the statements he made about the election. So let her run.
Let's talk about another comment the president made. He openly cast doubt on whether the 2022 midterm elections would be legitimate. He said it all depends, which is astonishing to hear a president question whether our elections will be legitimate. We've heard it before, but not from this president. Is he really concerned that we may not have fair and free elections?
The president has been consistent on this issue, and the issue at hand, I was there last night in the chamber of the Senate, and the issue is that there are two bills, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act, that have been the solution that has been offered to address the fact that around our country, states have put in place laws that are purposely making it more difficult for the American people to vote. Laws which will be felt by at least 55 million Americans, regardless of their party affiliation, their race, their gender, or their geographic location.
Well, to the point, though, because
so
those bills were debated. The bills were debated and they didn't pass.
If I may finish, if I may finish.
But the specific question, if you don't mind, does he think, now that these bills haven't been passed, that the 22 midterms won't be legitimate or fair or free?
Let's not conflate issues. So what we are looking at, and the topic of so much debate last night, was that we as America cannot afford to allow this blatant erosion of our democracy, and in particular, the right of all Americans who are eligible to vote to have access to the ballot unfettered. That is the topic of the conversation, and let's not be distracted by the political gamesmanship when what is truly at stake are issues like whether Americans with disability have the opportunity to vote by mail, whether a single parent has the opportunity with 3 kids in the back seat to vote by dropping off their ballot in a drop box instead of having to stand in line with those 3 kids for hours. These are the issues that are at stake.
And the president laid a lot of
and pivotal issues in terms of our democracy. We had an extensive conversation about foreign policy, Savannah. Well, I've met with prime ministers and presidents.
That's good. That's good. I'm good.
I'm good.
That's enough. Anyway, she never did answer the question. And that's typical for Ms. Harris. I mean, my opinion of Ms. Harris is not particularly high. But the President of the United States did exactly that. And it's interesting to me to see CNN and CNBC and NBC News and other news outlets, Washington Post, really stick to their media guns for a change. Joe Biden said what he said about those elections. And no amount of cleanup on aisle 4 is going to take care of that. I don't care how often they send Vice President Harris out there to try to make it clear. Joe Biden has already set up the narrative that if you lose, it's because Jim Crow exists, or that these election laws won't let it happen, or all these other things. All this stuff about drive-by boxes and whatever, they don't have drop-off boxes in other states. In most northern states, they don't have it. As far as easy mail-in voting, they don't have it in New York or Delaware, like I've been mentioning. And so why don't those states take care of that? Or if they worry about their own issues before they worry about Georgia, which is much more expansive than a good number of your Midwestern and Northeastern states. Joe Biden did what Donald Trump has been doing for the last 2 years, is try to delegitimize this election of 2020. I do not believe in the big lie. I believe you could find examples of this or that of vote count malfeasance, but I don't think it was nearly enough to change the outcome. I think the will of the people was heard in 2020. If many of them regret it now, it's too late. I want to make very clear, I almost misspoke and called Joe Biden a traitor. He is not a traitor, but he's not an honest man either. He's not an honest man. He never has been. This is Joe Biden from years on by. Those of us who are around my age, around 59, 60 years old, have been watching the Joe Biden show since the 70s. And he's always said many, many things that have been untrue. One last thing. CNN, which their viewership must be hitting the toilet because they're actually now going off on on Joe Biden a whole lot more. On January 20th, there's a fact check to look at Biden's first year and false claims. And their analyst, a guy named Daniel Dale, whom I'm not familiar with, went through all the claims he made in the first year of his administration that proved to be untrue or that were erroneous as he said it. Okay. And so for CNN to publish this is astounding because they would never do this for Obama, certainly, and they did this on a daily basis with Trump. You know, Washington Post had a running count of how many lies that Donald Trump said. Fine, but here's what I'm really getting at. I'm talking to the moderate to Democrat voter that listens or have friends. Your vote for Joe Biden was not miscast when you cast it, but we need to understand that this man has misled us. He misled us in the election. I didn't vote for Joe Biden. I voted for a Republican, and I'm just going to say it like that because I don't want to get into all of that. But I had very serious reservations about Donald Trump, and you could read into it what you want. But I didn't vote for Joe Biden. But he won the presidency. He is my president. I'm not one of these type of people that won't have him. I won't claim him as president. I just don't like him, and I think he's dishonest. And I think he was dishonest with you, Democrats, when he said he was going to bring a civility and a maturity to the White House that he has not shown so far. And I would ask you, moderate to Democrat voters that are listening to this, hold this man accountable. Hold your party accountable. You all pleaded with the Republican Party for 4 years to do that. And you saw what happened. So the Democrats need to hold this man accountable and hold him to a standard of conduct that they were very critical of with Donald Trump. For him to quit abusing and taking the fight to the press and not just calling them names. I don't have any sympathy for the press, but that is not the actions of a civil president trying to bring back a less divided country. Joe Biden is dividing this country purposely. You're either with the sinners, the saints, or with your Martin Luther King or your Bill Connor. And anybody who wants to point that out to them gets abused. That's my whole point. And so I hope today, I guess I want to re-hammer that point. I don't criticize people that don't vote like I do because it's not only their right, but quite often they have reasons too that may not be my reasons, but it's their reasons, and that's good enough. I don't criticize people who don't vote like I do, and nor should you really, because that is the American system. One side wins, one side loses. But the part of that bargain is the winners are gracious, the losers accept the outcome. So again, I'm not accusing you, Biden voters. I'm accusing him of misleading you. I'm accusing him of being dishonest. I'm accusing him of not living up to the standards that you hoped he would attain when you voted for him a year ago. So I hope you send this message out to your friends, share. I always enjoy that. It's on YouTube. It's been an interesting format, YouTube. It's again, like most new things, it's slowly building traction. But a lot of people said, I prefer to watch it on YouTube than on Facebook, and that's good. This will be on the podcast this weekend, I believe, Saturday morning. So tell
Yes,
your
I will.
friends, tell your neighbors. Is the other one up yet?
Yes, it is
Yesterday?
up. I went live
All right.
as you were talking.
Oh, good. So you get to hear all about
Or right
that in my.
before.
Yeah, oh, good. So you hear all about my struggles with COVID and all that. Also, Monday, we're going to be talking about a topic that a friend of mine, hang on a minute. COVID does dry your voice out. George DeWalt asked me to talk about some of the economic issues. So I'm going to talk about the Federal Reserve and about the interest rates and things like that. It may be a dry subject, but boy, it's going to hit you right where you live. So you might as well buckle up. But let's thank the sponsors before we leave. CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Thank you for everything you do for us, Daniel. Hope you're doing well. Hope everything is good with family. So check out CrossFitBurleson.com and check out their programs and memberships. Thank you, Shandy. Hope your family's doing well, avoiding all this nasty COVID business, turning transactions into relationships. So if you want to move in or around this area, then you need to talk to her, and she can help you talk about interest rates as well with her husband, Ronald. Also, thank you to Russell Wealth Group, myfinancialbox.com. Check out his videos so you can get to know him, have a little coffee with him, talk about your 401k. Thank you, Rex, for all you do. Thank you to Kimmy Etheridge, Optavia 817-789-1622. If you're looking to lose weight, keep it off, get a new lifestyle, she'll help you with that. Thank you, Gayla, over at Southern Gym, over on the top floor of the Windmiller Building. It's good to be Valentine's, so you want to check out, maybe take your beloved one's jewelry in for cleaning, repair, whatever. Also get some new stuff. She got the whole thing, that full service jewelry. So you go check her out. Thank you to Otto, of course, at our place. Thank you for everything you do. Hope you're doing well. And we'll see you next week, at least twice that I know of. Thank you to Chris over at Wild Cigar and Culture. Like I said, this weekend he has the ball games on, particularly Sunday with the championship games on. So go by and watch the games and have a smoke, and you'll enjoy your day. Thank you to Proactive Payment Solutions, Antonio, proactivepaymentsolution.com, help you with your point of sales and all your other transactions like that. So I hope to have him on the show sometime in February. It's a fascinating story. So proactivepaymentsolutions.com. Also, Beagles Tech. Paying Beagles, the Beagles Technology Solutions. Check out beaglestech.com or 817-944-3572, and they'll set you up with a smart home. They'll set you up with a smooth, efficient operation in your own home. And so give him a call. A very fine young man. So you want to do business with him. Thank you, Tiffany. Hope you're doing well. Hope you've avoided the crud. Like it's hard to do, particularly with kids, but locallifetx.com. Also, on a side note for Tiffany, she's also running the CHS after prom party. So if you're interested in that, you got a CHS kid in your home, or you know one, or whatever else, she needs a little help because it's a very difficult enterprise. So help if you really want to help out with the Centennial after prom party. They've been doing this at BISD for 25 years. I did it many times at BHS, and it's greatness. So because it's a great opportunity, kids love it. So locallifetx.com for the magazine, and email or contact Tiffany Griffin if you want to help with the Centennial after prom party. Also, live 365 Radio, Burleson Radio, your voice, your station, playing your hits right now. All right, Taylor, we'll see you Monday. Like I said, we talk about economic stuff. So, you're an economics major, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
No.
Wait, you wait a minute. You were taught by the great Wittenberg, were you not?
I was. I wouldn't say
Okay.
that would make me a major in it, though. He was amazing.
He was amazing.
It wasn't my major, so.
All right, well, good. I'd like to have him on there, but it's kind of tough because he actually works for a living. I just do this stuff. Anyway, so we'll see you on Monday.